All right, we are recording. Thank you so much for coming this evening. This is Research Strategies Workshop for Nursing 704. We are going to focus on primary sources, both through the library and outside of the library. That's a spoiler alert. So on today's agenda, like I said, we're going to talk about primary and secondary sources. If you don't need that overview, we'll breeze past. And if you do, we'll go over it more thoroughly. We will talk about searching for primary sources, both in the library. Ooh, not muted. There we go. Okay, both in the library's resources and then out on the open web, because I have a feeling for this class you may need both. Yes. So just to get us started, let's have a little chat. How do you identify a primary source? You can come off mic or onto the mic, or you can use chat. Either way, let's just have a discussion. How do you differentiate between primary and secondary sources? Not seeing anything in the chat, and people are being shy on mic. So maybe this is something we need to chat about for a minute. And that is okay. So this is kind of a condensed version, but a primary source is a resource that is considered like a first-hand account. I think of it in a humanities mind frame. So in a history class, a primary source might be something like a letter or a diary entry. It's something that has the original words of a person represented. So something that came directly from a time period, from a person who witnessed something firsthand. Now in medical disciplines, it's a little bit different. What you're really looking for is original research. And so the hints that you are looking at original research are that you'll find that the article represents data that was collected. So the authors did an original experiment. They collected data and then they analyzed that data and came to conclusions. This might be a pilot study, a cohort study, survey research. So they surveyed 300 people about something. A case study, so they studied one person or a very small group. A lab notebook, or randomized controlled trials. And also dissertations fall into this category. Now, a secondary source, by contrast, is a source where they have taken existing data and then maybe synthesized it with other existing data and drawn conclusions that way. So they didn't survey people and they didn't conduct an experiment, but they gathered a lot of literature and read across it laterally, and then synthesize that information. So that might be called a systematic review, a meta-analysis. It might come from a trade publication, so not a scholarly journal, but a nursing magazine or journal that is not peer-reviewed. That may come in the form of practice guidelines or standards, clinical care notes, patient education information is a good example of a secondary source, and also books. So if you find an ebook or a physical book that you really like, chances are it is a secondary source. There are some ways that it would be a primary. For example, if you were studying a specific person and a book was written by that person, it would be a primary source, but otherwise it's a good chance it's secondary. All right, so the reason that we're going over this is because you are expected to find and use primary sources in this course. So let's talk about how to do that. And we'll start with library resources. So before we dive in and actually start searching for things, it's helpful to know what we're talking about when we use different library vocabulary. So really what you need to know is that the library is built in layers. So you are after an article. That's the center of the circle. And it's the smallest unit of research. So you're looking for an article, but articles are housed in journals. Journals might be published once a month or once a year, and they typically contain articles all about a very, very specific subject. Journals, academic journals, are housed in library databases, and databases contain thousands and thousands of journal titles. Databases are typically discipline specific, so we're getting a little bit broader in nature. So I will show you guys how to find and use the nursing databases today. But we're going to start at the outermost layer, which is discovery. Discovery contains almost all of the library's databases. That's not just nursing, that's also, chemistry and psychology and English literature and history and all of the subjects that we cover. But discovery is a really excellent place to start because it spans all of that information. And I'll teach you all the tricks that you need to get to very specific search results so that you're not looking at the other disciplines and only looking at the things that you really need. So let's start there. We're going to start in discovery because it is the broadest. So when you get started, the library homepage should be your new hub of operations. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see our search bar. This is Discovery Search. So when I say we're going to search in Discovery, I mean we're going to use the search bar on the library's homepage. Instead of just typing in search terms here, I'm going to click Advanced Search. And the reason for that is that it gives you a slightly more complex search menu. So you see that we now have 3 lines and they're separated by these ands. What we want to do is break our subject down into the basest keywords possible. So however complex your research is, try to sift it down until it's at its most basic parts, and those will be your keywords. So somebody tell me about what you're researching. We can look for things for you.
Basically, we're researching about depression.
Okay. So tell me more. What do you hope to learn about depression specifically?
How depression affected nurses, most especially during the pandemic period.
Okay. That's good. And that actually, you have broken it down into some pretty simple keywordable things. So we might create a search that looks something like this. We might say nurses. And then we'd go to the second line and we'd say depression. And then we'd go to the third line and say COVID-19. Now, in between all of these lines, we have these ands. What the and does is it tells the search engine that your search results need to have all of these keywords to be relevant to you. So it's a very strong tool. That's why we go to advanced search instead of just typing into the search bar, because it offers these ands and you don't have to type them in manually. So let's click that and see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in a little so you can see better. But we have 41,500 results. In no world could you read those all. I mean, if you had enough time, but you probably do not have enough time to read those all. So we need to move on to a slightly more advanced search strategy, which is to use our filters. Now, if you're like me, you probably shop online a lot. I'm an Amazon fanatic, couldn't live without it. And when I shop on Amazon, there are filters on the left side of the screen that tell me, okay, if I click this, I'll only see items that are 4-star reviewed and up. And if I click this, I'll only see things that ship on Prime. And what you find in Discovery is that they have very similar filter functionality. So over here on the left, we see our filters. Now we know that we want to click the peer-reviewed filter because that's going to narrow things down to only those items that were published in academic journals. At this stage of the game, that's very important. So be sure to always click that checkbox. That cut our search results almost in half, but this is still too many. So let's keep going down. For you, I also suggest the publication date filter In medical disciplines, we're looking between the last 5 to 10 years. Since we specified COVID-19, we're not going to find any articles from before 2019. So that's already done for us. But if you needed to enter that, let's say you're only interested in 2020 on, because 2020 is when it really hit in this area of the world, we can type in the minimum date that we're interested in, click off of it, and then it will apply that filter also. And we didn't tease out very much there. But if we keep scrolling down, this is the one that I really want to emphasize today. You've probably used the peer review and the publication date filters before, but you may not have played with the subject filter. And this is where things get really interesting. So if you click on subject, and then I'm going to click on show more, this opens a menu. And I want you to think about this like hashtags on social media. So if you're on Instagram or Twitter and you see a hashtag, somebody has tagged that post. And if you click on the hashtag, it takes you to all the other posts that are tagged the same way. This is the library version of that. So what you're looking for in the subject filter are tags that match exactly what you need. So obviously there's COVID-19 and COVID-19 pandemic. Those are very promising. But if you look over here on the right column, you'll see how much it will reduce your search. So we're at 20-something thousand right now. And if I were to use the COVID-19 pandemic tag, I would get down to about 6,000. So I'm going to do that. And the best thing about the subject filter is that you can use it over and over again. So when you open up the menu, it can be tempting to say, well, I want this checkbox and this one and this one. But I suggest using one at a time and building that filter in layers. So we also know that we need results about depression. So I'm going to update the search with that filter on. Now we only have 621 results. And I bet if I did it one more time, we could get things to under 100, but let's see. Mental health is good. Nurses, haha. I saw the nurses tag. If we hit update one more time, now we only have 60 results. And that is parsable. That's 3 pages worth of results that you could read the titles for. To open an article, the first thing you want to do is actually click on the title and sign in for the 100th time in one day if you are off campus. And then it will bring you to a landing page. A lot of people blow past this landing page really quickly because they think it doesn't have anything of value and the article doesn't appear here. But when you go to cite your sources, everything you need is on this page. So I strongly recommend that if you are going to save this article, this is the page that you save. And to do that, never click the address bar and copy paste it somewhere the way that you would for any other link. You need to click the permalink button in the tools menu. If you use the link at the top of the browser, it will break after about 8 hours. It's very frustrating. So you will need to click permalink over here on the right side, and then use this link that appears above the title. That may be the most important thing we talk about today. So be sure to do that. And then when you want to actually read the article, you can click on the full text item or the link in the left-hand side, and it will bring up the article for you. Any questions about that? For you at this stage, the subject filter will be huge.
Amber,
Yes.
this is Gail. Could you just go back to that page that you were on that you encourage them to keep, and also just remind them that the citation is over there as well, and it'll give, if they click on that, it'll give them the options to find out there you go, the APA 7th edition, and all they have to do is cut and paste it. It's already put in correct format, and they can copy that onto their papers.
Yes, you can do that. So this is good for your references page. However, they are automatically generated by a machine. So be sure to double check it, especially for capitalization. Some people are real sticklers for this. So you want to make sure that it's appropriately capitalized and that all of the punctuation is in the right spot.
Thank you.
Otherwise, it will get all of the right information in there. It's just those little nuts and bolts pieces that may be missing. Thank you for pointing that out.
And also, when you cut anything, it sometimes throws it out of format, obviously. They have it indented as it's supposed to be here, but that could get messed up on a paste. So yeah, double checking it is really important.
And it likely would get messed up in a paste. So just
Yeah.
make sure all of the formatting things are correct
Okay.
before you submit. All right, so that's discovery. At this stage, if you were in the 600 level classes, I'd say that is what you need. However, since we are at the 700 level, we need to dig a little bit deeper. So we have been here on the outermost layer this whole time, but you guys are going to need to go one layer in to specific databases. The databases that I want to talk about with you today or recommend to you are CINAHL Ultimate, Ovid, and ProQuest Health Administration. I think those three will be key for this class. Yeah. And I'll let this sit on the screen for a second in case you want to write it down or take a screenshot or a picture with your phone. The thing that I like about CINAHL in particular that I'm going to take you into is that it has advanced search features that include checkboxes for primary sources. So that's going to be very important for you. I want to make sure that you know where those filters are so that you don't have to do any guesswork. To get to the individual databases, we're again on the library's homepage. You're going to scroll down until you see resources and hover over that. And then click on the databases link. This brings you to an A to Z list of all of our databases, and that's not just nursing, that's everything. So to get to only the nursing databases, you'll click on the drop down that says all subjects, and then select nursing. And that lists them all out for you here. CINAHL Ultimate is the first result. So we'll click on that. Now, the good news is that CINAHL is made by the same company that makes Discovery. And so the actual search pieces work exactly the same as Discovery. So you'll still have that peer-reviewed box, the publication date filter, and the subject filters when you get to your results page. So just one skill set that you had to learn. However, their advanced search is slightly different. You'll see that these fields are still the same up at the top. But if you scroll down, there are limiters that you can give to the search before you even conduct the search. I wanted to point out the metasynthesis checkbox. Don't check it for this. That will give you only secondary resources, which are not what you want. But the research article checkbox, as well as, and it's a little bit hidden, the randomized controlled trials checkbox will give you primaries. So be sure to check those, and then you can run your search as you would in Discovery here. So I'll do the same one. Nurses and depression and COVID-19. And I have those two filters already checked. And we'll see how much. We only have 3 results. And you can see this is a pilot, this is a randomized controlled trial, and this is a randomized controlled trial. So it works. That's one good shortcut. There are also filters for this in Ovid. I think it says original research article. So look for that if you use the Ovid database. And there should be also a filter in the ProQuest Health Administration database. So those three are your best bets, and you'll find all of them from that database's A to Z page, which I will take you back to just in case you needed to see again how to get to that. So from the library's homepage, hover over resources, click on databases, click on the all subjects filter, and then select nursing. And then all of our nursing resources are here. I also wanted to point out, and this may be like a little bit of a sidetrack, but it could be helpful. In our database up to date, there is a section specifically for practice changes, or changes that would change the way you practice. If you click on contents and then practice changing updates, this will give you the most recent information about how clinical care has changed and how those guidelines have changed. So that may be of use to you in this class as you're talking about procedures and quality assurance. So what about not using the library? And this is not something I typically talk about, thus the cranky looking librarian. Google is not your enemy. In fact, I'd like to show you a facet of Google today that you may not have used before that could seriously help you as you parse through websites like the CDC or Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services or Department of Health and Human Services or your state Department of Health. Any of those places where you may be looking for policy or guideline or some kind of hand down from above that we're meant to follow, you can make your life a lot easier than just searching and searching through their websites individually if you use something called Google Advanced Search, not Google Scholar. If you go to google.com/advanced_search, best kept secret, Google pulls up a search box that looks a lot like a library database. So if you feel good about the library database thing, you're going to feel great about Google Advanced Search. The fields that I really want to point out are the top two. The all these words field is a lot like just the general search bar on the library's homepage where you can type in anything. The second search bar is this exact word or phrase. So if you have a multi-word phrase that needs to stay together, it needs to go in this search bar, and you also need to put quotation marks around the search. This typically is really great for names, but it can be really good for other concepts also, like care policy could be a good example. And then the third field that I really want to show you is site or domain. This is the real power of this tool to me. You can choose a particular website or a particular web domain to search through. Now, a web domain is that little end tag of a web address. So the .com, .edu, .gov. So if you wanted to search across all websites that end in .gov for whatever you'd like, you would type in .gov into this box, and then whatever you'd like up here. So I'm going to just say health policy. That's random, but it'll show you how it works. When you hit the search button, you'll notice all 500,000 results are from .gov or government websites. Now you can make that more specific. Let's say you want to search cms.gov. You would type in that part of the web address. You don't have to put the www dot. And then I am going to search for quality improvement. And I'm going to put that in the general search, but I could also put it down here with the quotation marks around it. When I searched that, I still got a lot of results, but the first ones were really relevant to me. So I can see on the CMS website, the quality measurement and quality improvement page. And if I click that and my computer cooperates, I get to the meaningful measures framework, which could be useful for this class. Similarly, let's say you want to search the Missouri State Department of Health. That web address happens to be health.mo.gov. And let's say you're looking for policies about home care. So I'm going to say home care policy. It knew what I wanted already. I hit advanced search, and then it takes me straight to the page for that thing. Now, Google does full text searching. So even if the results on the first page don't match exactly what you typed, chances are the words that you typed into the search bar as keywords appear somewhere on that page. So it's still worth a click and a quick browse to see if you can find what you need. But you can see here are all kinds of documents from Health and Senior Services that are kind of what I was looking for. Let's do one more. Let's say I'm looking for documents from Emory Hospital in Atlanta, where I'm from. So their website is emoryhealthcare.org, and it knew what I wanted. And let's just say care policy here as well, like a patient care policy. You can see the first results is about insurance, and you can see care insurance is listed. The search engine isn't perfect. It might not always keep those words together. So that is why we use the exact word or phrase box. So I'm going to put care policy in that search box with the quotation marks around it. Hit advanced search. And now I have a compliance program manual. That is much more promising. I am back on the databases A to Z page on the nursing section. And we already looked at CINAHL, but I will also pull up Ovid for you because it does look a little bit different. Just to point out that filter I was talking about that will help you find primary sources. You'll probably see the screen. It always pops up for me. So just click all resources and OK. And then this is your search bar. So to get to the filters that will give you primary sources, click limits and then click original articles. And that will pull the primary sources for you. You'll see there's also review articles. Those are your secondary sources. Probably not what you want. So just click the original articles filter, and then you can type in your search words. Now in this database, it doesn't have the nice little breakouts where there are 3 search lines that have ands in between. So you would have to manually type the ands, ors, and nots into the search bar yourself. So let's use your topic again, Lucy. Depression and nurses and COVID-19. Now you notice when I type that in, I'm blowing it up a little bit so you can see. I know these are tiny. You can see that I typed and manually, and I made it all capital letters. If you make it lowercase, in some databases, the computer doesn't know what to do with that and doesn't treat it like an and. So be sure to keep that in all capital letters. We have our original articles filter selected, and we can go ahead and use the publication year filter here as well. But it being COVID-19, we know that it's going to be 2019 to present. All right, looks like
Mm.
we found 4,263 results. So we still found quite a lot. Now you can see over here on the left side, we have more filters, and they're very similar to the ones in the other platforms. You can see years here. You can select this specific journal. If you know of a specific journal that you like to use or that you think is valuable, you can select its title here, and as well as the publication type, but these are all going to be articles. So you can see this looks a little bit different, but it functions much the same. One of the infinitely frustrating things about doing library research is that every article you pull up from various places might look totally different. And that makes a lot of people feel like they're looking at the wrong thing. But chances are, if you clicked on it from Discovery or from one of these databases, you're doing exactly the right thing. It's just that all of the different places where that information lives look different. I also wanted to point out that the library has produced research guides specifically for graduate nursing. 3 that I think would help you specifically are the Healthcare Policy Research Guide, the DNP Research Guide, and the Evidence-Based Practice Research Guide. To find all of those, again, you go to the library's website. I have it on my most used links for obvious reasons. Scroll down to resources again, but instead of clicking databases, you'll click subject guides. And then it lists all of the different disciplines that we have made guides for. So you'll scroll down to nursing, and you'll find all of those here. So there's the DNP guide, the evidence-based practice guide, and the health policy guide actually lives in health professions. There are some more. So if you are planning to do research about like a really specific health topic, you may find more information here, like dermatology, exercise science. There's the health administration guide, which may also be very useful. And then, yeah, there's pharmacology, patho, that may be useful to you as well. Let me pull up. Sorry.
Oh,
That's okay. This is the DNP guide. You can see there are tabs over here on the left that will take you to places that talk more specifically about how to find things. It even has a tab out to the evidence-based practice guide where you can learn more about primary and secondary sources, saving your search history, PICO, if you find yourself making a PICO question in your research, as well as synthesizing literature. This tends to be a sticking point for a lot of people. So if you find yourself needing to synthesize and having trouble, this video could be of great assistance as well. So just remember, from the library's homepage, hover over resources, click subject guides, and then browse from there. All right, last call for questions, and then I will let you guys out a little bit early. If you do have questions later, there are a few ways to get in touch with us. Our first line of defense is our 24/7 chat service. You can chat any time of the day or night with a real librarian who has access to all of our resources. From our homepage, if you click Ask a Librarian, it opens the chat. You can type your question here and then you're off. Or if you would like to schedule a one-on-one Zoom session with one of the library staff, that's me or my colleague Paul Worrell, you can scroll down to Ask a Librarian, click the word help, and then it brings you to a page with all of your different options. You can schedule an appointment by clicking here. It'll give you our times and availability. Additionally, if you are feeling super stumped, you can email us at reference@maryville.edu, and that will go to all of the library staff, and someone will grab your question and help you as soon as possible.